Representative Pearce is the chairman of the Western Caucus here. We will be pleased to hear from you now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Grijalva, and members of the subcommittee. We appreciate you holding the hearing on 1581 today, the Wilderness and Roadless Area Release Act of 2011. Appreciate Mr. McCarthy's leadership in bringing that forward. As chairman of the Congressional Western Caucus, I'm proud to be an original co-sponsor of this legislation. As we're speaking, large areas of the West continue to burn. These fires burn hotter and faster than they ever have in years past. This endangers the life of humans, plants, animals, and destroys any possibility of species benefiting from the forest. The fires are burning because of the management of our public lands. Decades of trees have been allowed to accumulate as fuels, and now Mother Nature has shut off the water, and the drought plus the explosive loads of fuels in our forests are causing the fires. The West is very familiar with wilderness designations, and my district knows them as well as any other. One of the first declared wilderness areas under the 1964 Wilderness Act, the Gila Wilderness, is in my district. While I do not oppose the designation of wilderness in areas that qualify by the strict definitions of the 1964 Act, it is a costly decision that the federal government continues to treat millions of acres that do not qualify, and it treats them as de facto wildernesses. For example, a wilderness area is defined as an area of undeveloped federal land that generally appears to have been affected primarily by the forces of nature, with the imprint of man's work substantially unnoticeable. This is according to the text of the Act. The Gila fits this definition. However, as with other areas throughout the West, there are wilderness study areas within my district that do not meet these criteria by this definition, but they're being managed by the Wilderness Act. The WSA in Doñana County, for example, the Robledo Mountains WSA is deemed unsuitable for wilderness because of frequent motorized vehicle use and air traffic from Las Cruces International Airport, but it's being still managed as wilderness. The Sierra de las Uvas WSA is considered unsuitable due to off-road vehicle use. 20 years later, both of these WSAs are still governed by the same regulations as actual wilderness, despite the Department of Interior deeming them unsuitable. This means that no chainsaws can be used to clear underbrush and dead timber for fire prevention. Trucks cannot come in to haul off material that can set these areas ablaze. Last week, 4,500 acres of the Gila Wilderness burned due to lightning, and the fire crews had difficulty navigating the rugged terrain of the wilderness to actually fight the fires. While much of the West continues to burn, how much sense does it make to keep unsuitable areas under such restrictive regulation? These areas are tinderboxes just waiting for a lightning strike or some other spark to ignite conflagration. This story plays out time and time again across the West. It makes much more sense to release these WSAs than to just keep them in this constant state of limbo. Releasing them will keep them under federal ownership and opens them up to the same management practices available on other federal lands. This will allow the various federal agencies to conduct proper land management to prevent the spread of wildfires and to keep these lands healthy for both people and animals to enjoy. Preventing us from releasing these WSAs only keeps us from implementing common sense solutions that can keep our forests thriving and maintaining thriving habitats that actually benefit wildlife. The way to do this is to move these WSAs into the multiple use category. Some people hear multiple use and think that it leads to degradation of the environment. It does not. It maintains a proper balance to keep the forest and other natural areas alive. It maintains a healthy wildlife balance. Plus, it can lead to economic growth through managed timber harvesting. When we consider the area of roadless rules, recently our district was host to a large public meeting. The Forest Service had claimed they had public meetings talking about declaring the roadless rules in the Gila National Forest. Keep in mind that the Gila Wilderness is almost 1 million acres right next door to the almost 2 million acres of national forest. The roadless rule was going to create almost 3 million acres of de facto wilderness in one area of our state. Now, the agency had described public meetings in which they had gotten all the public input they got, but when we advertised for a week that the Forest Service was talking about eliminating people out of 95% of the Gila National Forest, we had 800 people show up on a weekend to testify and to say enough is enough. 95% of that forest would be unavailable to anyone, much less people with disabilities. If you Google the word roadless and U.S. Forest Service, the first pages that come up deal with stopping timber. This is the agenda of the roadless rule in the U.S. Forest Service. Let's release these areas and get common sense management. And I yield back.
Thank you, Congressman.